Welcome to the Geek 101 podcast, episode 254, What We Do in the Shadows, another spooky vampire comedy. Think of it like this. If you're going to eat a sandwich, you would just enjoy it more if you knew no one had it. I'm Ariel.
And I'm Andy Bowman, the Defiler.
And I wrote the poker. And today we are talking about what we do in the shadows. We do a quick should you watch, talk about other comedy, supernatural type things. But before that, we actually do have noteworthy news. Andy, we have news that is not plain old delays. So why don't you start us off?
All right, Ariel. You know what? I'm going to cover this because this news is big. It's finally happening, Ariel. They have finally set a date that is going to happen, and New Mutants is finally coming out to theaters on August 28th. Finally. This is for real, Ariel. This is going to happen.
We will see if it'll actually happen.
It will happen, Ariel.
But for those of you who are so confused as to why New Mutants doesn't just go on Disney Plus or whatever, when they acquired the film from Fox, the deal was they have to release it theatrically, and it has to be on HBO platform until a certain point. Well, that's why we won't be seeing it straight to VOD. I'm pretty sure at some point they would have decided, if they were allowed to just put it on VOD.
Yeah, you can just hear the entire Disney executives just being like, this one thing is such a thorn in our side. We can't
Yeah.
release it. And the old Fox executives are laughing. They're like, we left them with this. All the contractual obligations. They have to do it all.
Yeah. Moving on, we have Edgar Wright creating a production company. Now, I'm a little wary of news like this because excellent directors, people like Spielberg and Guillermo del Toro, love attaching their names to things that they would never actually make or touch. What do we know about Edgar Wright's production company?
Okay, Edgar Wright's production company is called Complete Fiction. And here's the one thing about it is it's really just his producer from Baby Driver, Nira Park, working together with some of their long collaborators like Joe Cornish, the guy who wrote and directed Attack the Block and wrote almost all of Edgar Wright's movies with him. They just have a couple series working on the Netflix banner. One is called Lockwood & Co., which is just described as a supernatural action adventure detective series based on the novels by Jonathan Stroud. And Netflix has optioned a few other lists, and it's just Edgar Wright. And Edgar, I would put, he's not someone who likes to put his name on a ton of stuff. I would put him more like a Jordan Peele, where when he wants to create something, he helps craft it from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I just bring this up. It's just like, oh, Netflix is seeking out something, and Edgar could finally kind of adapt some of the things he's probably been working on for a while, and he's probably just tired of working with studios directly, and has crafted his own thing. That's cool. It's really cool.
Moving on, we have a couple of castings for The Mandalorian, which is probably the most popular Star Wars thing, kind of a universally loved Star Wars thing that there is right now.
Ariel, all Star Wars is universally loved.
I still haven't watched episode 9, by the way. I don't see that changing anytime soon. Timothy Olyphant, who is quite famous for his role in Justified and
Deadwood,
so, and Deadwood
and so many other things. He's a great comedy guy. He's a lot like John Hamm, I think.
Yes, yeah. And so, obviously it's a Western thing. And Katie Sackhoff, who is very famous among the sci-fi-esque Battlestar Galactica, Riddick type crowd, right? Both of these actors very much fit the mold as to what The Mandalorian is about.
Yep. And what's interesting with Katie Sackhoff is she's actually playing the character that she voiced in the Clone Wars series.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. So we do know who both of these people will be playing. We know their names, so no surprises. We also know that the actor who played the Mandalorian, the actor who played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones will be will be making an appearance in the Mandalorian. As who, we are not sure yet.
Yeah. We also do have reports that Boba Fett's armor has been seen on the set. Mm-hmm. And also, at one point, Timothy Olyphant is wearing some of Boba Fett's armor, apparently. Now, his character, Cobb Vanth, who he's playing, is a kind of like a sheriff figure on Tatooine. So, you can kind of draw conclusions from that. He probably just stole it.
Yeah. All right. Last piece of news here. We have CW news. Andy, I do know that this is your favorite television franchise of all time.
Dude,
so much so that you dedicated a string of episodes in regards to watching the seasons. Our first piece of news, one that I didn't write down, but it's worth mentioning, I suppose, is that Stargirl is appearing soon on CW. But we have a couple things here. Ruby Rose, who previously played Batwoman, is no longer going to be in the role. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Cool. I haven't watched a single episode of the Arrowverse after Arrow ended. I've kept up with Legends of Tomorrow because that's an amazing show that everyone should watch. But I haven't really touched Batwoman, Supergirl, The Flash. There's better things out there. I want to be happy with my life. Ruby Rose was fine as Kate Kane. It's weird. This is big news. Ruby Rose was a huge name when they were announcing the casting. I'm guessing that she wants to go off and do other things.
Sure. Yeah. She probably, I'm curious. Maybe she doesn't believe that this is like, because if this goes in the same vein as Arrow, that's like syndication. That's syndication money. But you do, if she's not wanting for money, you do not have time to do much of anything else.
Yeah. It also might have something to do with the constant delays. CW did announce that like all their shows the seasons were going to be starting in January for the most part.
Yeah. So there's that. Another last piece of news, Andy. Our favorite DC Universe show is coming to the CW.
Well, it was our favorite DC Universe show before the animated Harley Quinn show came out, which is amazing.
Oh, yes. Okay. So it was by default. It is by default my favorite DC Universe show.
Yeah. It's Swamp Thing is coming to the CW, and it's weird. It was canceled last May, so it's kind of nice that CW was able to bring it back up. I don't really know what to think about this because Swamp Thing, as it stands, was a really, really good CW show. But the budgetary cuts that they're going to have actually coming to the CW is probably going to make it of a much lesser quality.
Sure. And last thing that I forgot to mention, I think Sailor Moon and Card Captor Sakura are both coming to Netflix. So some other anime type things coming to Netflix. Andy, do you have any experience with either of those two animes?
Fighting evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight. Na 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 na. Yes, Ariel. Sailor Moon always aired before Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid running home from school. So I know a lot about Sailor Moon.
You know what? I think I might be mistaken. I think Sailor Moon it was just an anniversary. I have no idea. Let me look this up in real time right now.
Oh, thrilling podcasting.
Yes. But both very popular things. Everyone is kind of like is redrawing Sailor Moon for some reason or another, but Cardcaptor Sakura is coming to Netflix, and some people are very excited about that. But Andy, let's get to our main topic today.
Right. And you know what? Let's go ahead and just address the one thing we didn't cover, and why we're covering Taika Waititi's beautiful work. Taika Waititi's getting a Star Wars movie.
Oh, yes. That's why I forgot we mentioned that before. Yeah, I am very curious as to what it's going to be like. There is would you say greater than 50% chance or lower than 50% chance that he is not going to actually direct a Star Wars movie?
I think it's lower than 50%. I think he is going to direct this movie.
Okay. Because the last comedy director to be tasked with directing a Star Wars movie got fired, and that was Lord and Miller.
Okay, well, they're two directors, first of all. And here's the other thing. Taika Waititi already has experience working with the Star Wars universe. He directed the best episode of The Mandalorian. He has experience working with the big studios. You know, if you look at Lord Miller's track record, they were also fired from The Flash. They might not work too well with larger studio formats. I think Taika can. He's already made Thor Ragnarok. He has a little bit more pull, being an Academy Award winner. So yeah, I think he's going to go through with it. I think the rumors about this have been bubbling for a while because he's been working on this for a while. Yeah, this is cool. It's going to happen.
Who do you think is better filmmaker? The duo or Taika Waititi?
Taika.
I think I prefer Lord and Miller's movies more.
Okay. Here's what I think. I think Lord and Miller are way more clever about being commentaries on larger things and making what they're doing more not profound, but kind of a deeper level of comedy, where Taika is good at being a really, really good comedian. Like Lord Miller have more layers to their stuff. Jump Street and Lego Movie are incredibly deep and very good. Taika's movies, Hunt for the Wilder People, Thor, like they are very funny. The comedy holds up, but it's not very. I wouldn't say it's incredibly deep. I'd say it's very well written.
I think Taika. I think a lot of his comedy, like you said, is almost like stand-up comedian-esque, where he like sets up a joke and gives you a punchline, and you know it's obviously not a punchline in like, you know, like a verbal punchline. Maybe it might be visual, it might be an action, a gag or something. I think Lord and Miller are almost more like improv comedians. I think they're funnier on the whole, but I think I'll laugh harder watching a Lord and Miller movie, but I will probably look back and chuckle more at a Taika Waititi joke.
Yeah, I can see that. What Lord and Miller movies have you watched?
I've seen Cloudy with a Chance. I've seen both Jump Street movies, the Lego Movie. Those are the only ones they've directed.
Yeah. I'm looking at their list,
but I think the Jump Street movies are incredible. I think they're way better than they have any right being.
Yeah, and the Lego Movie's way better than it has any right to be.
Right. The Lego Movie is a 10 out of 10 on the difficulty scale, and they nail it. Phil Lord did write Into the Spider-Verse, as we're looking here on the IMDb page. So, I mean, you know, they both have very different strengths. I can totally see why Lord and Miller's comedic stylings did not vibe with Star Wars people, right? They're just like, yeah, let's give it another take. Like, let's get more jokes, you know, like we've got, you know, whatever. And I can feel like, I don't know, this might not be true. I feel like Taika Waititi's comedy is like 85% in the script, and Lord and Miller's might only be like 50% in the script.
Yeah. I like describing that. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
And then so what I kind of want to relate it to is I went to watch Carrie Ellis, the actor who played Wesley. I watched The Princess Bride, and then there was a Q&A after with Carrie Ellis, and he said the number one thing that Rob Reiner told him is that no matter what you're doing when you are acting in this movie, you cannot try to be funny, because it will the moment you try to be funny, the material it'll seem overdone. And I think that's what like Taika Waititi's material is like William Goldman's in The Princess Bride. All the jokes are written in. There's no like Mel Brooks like ham it up type things. Not really. And I think that's kind of similar to Taika Waititi's style of filmmaking.
Right. I will say I do think that Taika Waititi will probably be one of the most prolific directors and actors as far as being in the most high profile nerd stuff. He was in he was in Thor, The Avengers. He was in Mandalorian. No doubt he is going to be in his own Star Wars movie. Just even in like a small role.
Yeah, it's him and like Jon Favreau.
Right. He's going to be in the Suicide Squad.
Sure, yeah.
And he has been in the pre-DCEU movie Green Lantern.
Well, was he in Green Lantern?
Yeah. He was Ryan Reynolds' friend.
Oh, I gotta rewatch that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to rewatch it, but
yeah, I wouldn't rewatch it, but he was in Green Lantern, so
okay, yeah. All right, let's talk about what we do in the shadows. Andy, do you want to talk the film first, or let's talk about the film?
The film came first. We're going to keep comparing the TV show to the films.
Right. We're talking about Taika Waititi, which he has more of a hand in the film than he does in this. What were your impressions of the film, What We Do in the Shadows?
It was kind of just a nonstop giggle fest for me. I immediately love anything supernatural horror. That's already great to me. And the idea of a film that's a mockumentary about vampires living together it just immediately hit a funny bone, and I was watching it and I could not stop laughing. It's great. I really like it.
So I watched this on the eve of Thor Ragnarok coming out. So Thor Ragnarok hadn't come out yet. I was curious as to what people thought of Taika Waititi. I had no idea what to expect from Thor Ragnarok. And when I went to find this movie, I almost watched Dark Shadows. Which was,
you would have loved Thor Ragnarok so much more, though. You'd been like, oh man, this was crap movie. I gotta go see Thor Ragnarok now. Oh, Thor's so good. It's so much better than his other movie.
Yeah, that would have been hilarious. I wasn't like, to me, I was not completely 100% in off the bat. Off the bat. The moment that got me, Andy, was when Jermaine Clement's character Vladislav the Poker, when they're talking about how he keeps trying to transform into animals, but he can't get the face right. And you're like, what? And then when he does it later on, when they're going to kill those humans, and it's like there's a cat and the Jermaine Clement's face is like messily photoshopped onto it. Like that's when like the dam broke and I started cracking up.
I mean, I was just kind of chuckling like that the entire time. Uh, the the movie, by the way, and much the show doesn't really stress this as much, but the movie has each vampire of the four vampires is a kind of a different genre of vampire, right? You've got the Nosferatu who lives in their basement, Peter.
Yeah.
You've got the Vladislav the Poker, who's basically Vlad the Impaler. You've got the Lestat character.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the very, very Lost Boys style new vampire.
Yeah, yeah. I do love that he put so much thought and depth into the characters and putting them in ridiculous situations. I love the commentary, both of the movie and the show, of like people, like immortals who are unaffected by time, but when you think about it, would be completely out of touch with modern times. Like, it's such a brilliant concept.
Yeah. I mean, they don't understand what it is. They love the idea, like, okay, we got to blend in. We've got to blend in with the humans, and they're wearing the 17th century clothing.
Why is no one wearing a cape?
The introduction to the werewolves is great in both the movie and the show.
How does it happen in the movie? I don't remember.
They're just kind of walking and they bump into them.
Okay. Yeah.
And it kind of just like the werewolves kind of don't move out of the way and bump into the vampires and like fucking werewolves.
Yeah, and in the movie, Mike and I think we covered the movie, did a quick review of it. The actor who gets turned into a werewolf is not an actor. He is one of the computer graphics guys.
Huh.
Yeah. So I really enjoy the movie. I'd like to rewatch it because I think it'll hit me a little better, especially after watching the TV show. Are there any other thoughts you have on the movie? It's hard to talk about it, right? It's just like, yeah, you just gotta sit and you gotta watch and you gotta, if you like it, you like it.
Right. And the movie also, because it's a movie that's innately just kind of supposed to be a day in the life of these vampires.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of just follows these guys around. There's not so much a story through line.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit more difficult to talk about. It's got some great set pieces, but it feels like this is the movie that Taika Waititi got to make, and the show is what he really wanted to do.
Yeah. So let's go to the show. It's amazing that the show is not, quote unquote, any worse than the movie.
Right. And by the way, guys, the show's on Hulu. Hulu teamed up with FX to really, really give us great content. So Hulu.
Yeah, Hulu's killing it on TV, and hopefully we don't have the same homework. I have homework from Hulu. I mean, if we do, I have other things that I've been checking out.
But back to the show.
Yeah, back to the show. I really, so the show stars, the movie stars Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement.
Right. And Jonathan Brough.
What is he in?
I
know he's in Shaun of the Dead.
Right. But he's also like, he was kind of in the Flight of the Conchords.
Jonathan Brooke?
I think so.
No, that's Jermaine Clement.
Right. But like, that's the whole thing is like, Jermaine Clement got his old buddy. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's a different guy in Flight of the Conchords.
He's a New Zealand comedian.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty, it's, the three of them are New Zealand actors. Taika Waititi is so absurd in it. I love it. It's just hard to talk about, but moving on to the TV show, Andy.
It's a lot easier to talk about. By the way, Jonathan Brough was in an episode of Power Rangers Dino Thunder, because that's where they usually record it, is in New Zealand.
All right. But let's talk about the TV show here. What are your thoughts on it? So we've both only seen season 1.
Right. So first of all, my biggest fear whenever I heard like, oh, they're doing an American remake of New Zealand. Well, it's like, this isn't even a different language. Why would you even bother remaking this? What could you possibly add? And they're like, and it's going to be a TV show. I was like, well, you know, the idea of a vampire documentary that inherently goes to a TV show. If you want to make it something like The Office, that's great. But I bet the pilot is just going to be the same as the movie, and they're going to be recycling a bunch of the same jokes. And as it turns out, no, it really does not recycle a lot of the same jokes. It's inherently funny. It does take place in the same universe as same world as the movie, which is great. And there's a set of great cameos. But these are inherently different characters.
They don't seem that way at first, too. You think they're going to try to make it the same.
Right. Like Nando feels very much like Vladislav.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go over these characters, and they even add a few new characters, completely whole cloth, to the house. First things first, the Nosferatu is not already living with them. The Nosferatu, Baron, played beautifully by Doug Jones, and we'll get to him later. Next, the Lestat character is played by amazing comedian Matt Berry, who fans of the IT crowd will know is the boss from the IT crowd. And he's playing Laszlo. You have an actress that I've never heard of, Natasha Dimitri. I would want to say that's how you would pronounce her name. She's
probably Natasha.
Yeah. She is playing Nadia, Laszlo's wife. You also have a new familiar. They have a familiar in Guillermo, played by Harvey Guillen.
Probably Guillen. He is hilarious. He is my favorite character on the show.
He's amazing. But you do have the other character who is an energy vampire, and he is the coolest guy in the world, Colin Robinson. I guess like the joke about Colin Robinson is that he's so cool that when he's talking to people about all of his cool stuff, and he's just being the biggest badass.
Oh,
and I mean, I look up to this character. I want to be this. He's just so cool, Ariel.
That informs a lot about you, Andy.
And you know, so he talks to people. He gets them psyched up with really interesting things, like a debate about Q-tips, and saps their excitement away. Right, Ariel? That's what I got from Colin Robinson.
So I really love the concept, and this is something that they introduced in the What We Do in the Shadows TV show, is the fact that there are different types of vampires and not just your traditional bloodsuckers. We have he is an energy vampire, and that does not mean like electricity. He drains humans and vampires and other beings of their energy, and by that he like bores them to death. Yeah. And it's so funny because at one point I found myself thinking, is this guy actually a vampire? And then by a couple of episodes down the road, you find it's very clear that he actually is a creature of some sort. But I love the joke in episode 1 where they're like trying to kill the virgins, and Colin gets to them first, and they're like, and Laszlo's like, they have no nutrients now. He has drained them, and then they're like, that energy vampires can drain the energy of other vampires too. He's so good.
Well, and another thing here about his character, which he's played by Mark Proksch, who played the teacher tickler in AP Bio. That's where I know him from. He was in The Office and Drunk History. He's this great comedian. I can't tell if he knows that he's being boring or not. Like I know that he does know that this is the effect it's having. I don't know if he's purposefully being boring. As specifically in like later episodes when, they're going through stuff and he's just not offering them any emotional support. He's just so great. Going up to the town meeting,
the zoning laws.
Every scene that he's in, he and Guillermo just steal the scene, which is really impressive. I just love it. I love everything about all of these characters. By the way, Nandor, played by Kevin Novak, was in probably the darkest comedy I have ever seen, called Four Lions. Ariel, if you are in the mood for a pitch black comedy, check it out.
I'm never in the mood for that anymore. I think Colin does know because of how he acts around Elvie, who we later learn is an emotional vampire,
a more advanced form of an energy vampire.
Yeah. I think we know it from there. The introduction of that and other different types of vampires, I think, are pretty special to the show. What else can we talk about in regards to what we do in the shadows?
Let's talk about Guillermo.
Sure.
Guillermo's character, he's their familiar. He has worked out a deal.
What is a familiar?
Right. He has worked out a deal. A familiar is basically like a slave, right? A willing slave who helps them out. You might really know. Typically, witches' familiars are cats. They can be whatever. They do have a mind of their own, and the deal is that you work for the vampire for a little while, and then you become a vampire. How is this working out for Guillermo, Ariel?
Oh, it's not working out at all. And there is a great like bit about it later when Guillermo meets other familiars. This also plays out in the film, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. They have Steve, I think, who is their familiar, who's working in exchange for eventually becoming a vampire. Guillermo has a great opening scene where he describes why he wants to become a vampire.
Yes, he refers to Antonio Banderas.
right. Which is great. Guillermo, if you can't tell, is a Hispanic dude.
Yeah.
What was it exactly he said about Antonio Banderas, Ariel?
He saw him in Interview with a Vampire, and he wanted to be like him. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that he had never seen a vampire who was Hispanic.
Stupid. But I think what we do in the shadows does best, both film and TV show. It's that it takes these tropes, and even though the comedy is very absurd, it's almost like a very realistic take as what vampires would be like. Like, they would not be able to control themselves in terms of like killing people. They would have, I think, when you know this about Vladislav in the film, and I can't remember his name.
Nandor.
Nandor in the thing where Laszlo's like, yeah, you give Nandor an axe and I wouldn't, he's second to none. And, they were like brutal, violent, bloody, but like living for thousands of years, like it really F's you up. And I think this is like one of the only pieces of media, both film and TV show, that show you that like living forever, like people with human brains are not meant to live forever. Like you get really messed up. Like these people are so completely out of touch. And we know this in real life from people who grow, for some people who are, 70, 80, 90 who have a certain way of thinking can't ever move away from it. Like, imagine if that happened for 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years. That's exactly what this would look like.
Right. And with that, Ariel, I really think we should probably dive a little bit into spoilers. Things that people would consider spoilers, cameos, great moments.
Yeah, I think plot is very low on the actual spoiler.
Right. You could tell
aspect,
me everything that happens this season, and I still would have gotten the same amount of enjoyment just waiting for it.
Yeah, agreed. Sure. Really quick, Andy, in terms of like how the real world would expect something, the familiar is also one of those things where familiars would be kind of like almost pathetic people that really want to be a vampire, and vampires would just string them along for their entire lives. That's what would happen in real life for the familiar. They wouldn't be these cool humans, who are free thinkers and whatever. Like, no, they would just be like poor, depressing, hopeless people who are being taken advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, I could still be at the Panera Bread, 10 years. I'd probably be manager.
I'd have free Panera all the time.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the spoiler aspects of this.
Okay. So, the werewolf fight.
That cracked me up, bro. Oh my god, that was the funniest. I think that was the funniest moment where he's like, that's a big guy. He wasn't here before. And then he picks the weapon.
Okay. We should probably give some context to the people who are listening for some reason with us to just crack up laughing. So they end up finding out that they have in Staten Island they have a bit of a werewolf issue. Some werewolf has urinated all over statues that
Laszlo
has of his two favorite vulvas.
His wife's,
his wife
and his mother's.
So he sets out a werewolf trap, and he gets a werewolf caught in the trap. And as it turns out, there's some kind of agreement between vampires and werewolves in Staten Island, made in 1993.
1993.
That basically they have to meet on the top of an abandoned circuit city and fight if there's any issues. So they have a little duel. How does that go, Ariel?
Nandor, the fighter of the house, takes a squeaky bone and throws it off the roof. And the werewolf just runs after it. But after the werewolves are like dealing with their friend, they're like, hey, can we keep the bone? Oh, it's so good. It's just one of those things where they completely subvert your expectation. Like, what's going to happen. You just don't know how they're going to change it and be ridiculous. And it was beyond all expectation.
Right. And when Nandor picks up the squeaky toy and they all get upset and call him a racist. And you're just like, he's so stupid. He doesn't even get, and instead just throwing it off. That's cheating.
Oh, that was so good. So good. Yeah, I really, there are some really awesome, really hilarious moments of it. Is that your favorite part of the season? We're talking season 1. We haven't seen season 2 yet.
Right. For me, my favorite part might be Guillermo finding out that his ancestors are Dutch, and they have
3% Dutch.
Right, he's 3.2% Dutch, and they had the last name Van Helsing.
And he's like, Van Helsing isn't real. But yeah, so it turns out that Guillermo is a descendant of the famous vampire killer, and I'm sure that comes to a head in season 2.
Right, and Guillermo has accidentally killed 2 vampires.
It's so stupid. It's just so stupid, but it's so great.
Also, really quick, let's talk about Beanie Feldstein's character, Jenna.
Okay, Jenna, the actress is from Booksmart, right?
Right. She's from Booksmart. She just had a movie I haven't seen yet called How to Make a Girl. I look for. She's very funny, and I like everything she does. But she plays a college freshman who is clearly out of her depths in her LARPing community, and she gets turned into a vampire by Nadia.
Right, and this is, of course, very, very frustrating to Guillermo.
Yeah.
Where they just willy-nilly turn her into a vampire. I do like the journey of the new vampire. They explore a little bit in the movie, and I imagine they will do it some more in this. Do you have any specific thoughts about that character?
Well, I always love a good shout out to my favorite music genre, ska. So her Beanie Feldstein's first human kill involves her going to a frat party that has a ska band there, and she kills the lead singer, which is just great. It was just interesting that it wasn't immediate. The great gag where she's dead and her roommate comes back and sees that she's dead. And
she goes to an ambulance.
Right, the EMTs pull her out, and she just like is in a body bag. Then she just sits right up and is like, "I'm fine." Like, "Ma'am, you're not fine. Ma'am, you need to go to a hospital." No, I'm good. I'm good. Leave me alone. Yeah. It's very interesting. They're doing a very good job at making a vampire mythology and following through and actually detailing the vampire mythology in a way that seems kind of natural for a documentary crew to find. Yeah,
and they are, it's weird to say, right? But there's like no inconsistencies. There's no like weird. It's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna do this and pull it out of our butt, and like they're doing a good job world building. And one of the best jobs they do world building is through the Vampire Council. This is one of their best bits, I think, Andy.
Absolutely. This is an episode I remember like hearing how one episode of the first season was so good that everyone needs to watch it. Please, if you're still listening for some reason, this is the episode to watch. You need to watch the episode before this. I forgot what it's called. And then the episode after this, which is called The Trial.
Yeah, so what makes The Trial so funny is a string of cameos of people essentially playing vampire versions of themselves.
Right, and let's go with the first cameo. The most unexpected cameo, I think, was a certain ex-wrestler in Dave Bautista playing Garrett, the vampire.
In sitting in jail for a crime that we know that Laszlo committed instead.
He turned a baby into a vampire.
In the Bronx. Honestly, I was bored. Yeah, so Dave Bautista's in it. Is there, we have, what's her name from Bob's Burgers and Last Man on Earth?
Kristen Shaw.
Kristen Shaw, yes, who plays Louise in Bob's Burgers, which I started rewatching, and is of course hilarious.
Bob's Burgers is the modern day Simpsons.
Sure, yeah, a little more wholesome at times, but yeah. Andy, who are the other cameos on the Vampiric Council?
Okay, so the Vampiric Council comes up, and the first face we see looks kind of familiar, and she takes off her robe, and it's Tilda Swinton.
Right, and then you are reintroduced to the three vampires from the film who tell you that this character's name is Tilda. And then they introduce the immortal princess of the undead, Evan, who is played by Evan Rachel Wood. And then a bunch of other actors. Andy, why don't you tell us who these actors are?
All right. So So the big list of actors here, you've got Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, who was a vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. You've got Wesley Snipes.
They call the Half-Blood in a Daywalker.
Right. You've got Wesley Snipes. You've got Danny Trejo,
who is in the Robert Rodriguez films.
Right. And From Dusk Till Dawn, he's a vampire in that. I mean, God, I'm trying to think here now, because I think that might be it for the physical cameos.
Yeah, so I'm looking here. Those are the cameos, and then you have they mention a couple names. Okay. So the first one is Rob. Who do we think is that? Rob Lowe?
No, it's Robert Pattinson.
Oh, Pattinson. Okay.
Right. They're like, where? Wait, I don't see Rob. Where's Rob? Like, well, Rob didn't really want to show up. We couldn't get Rob?
Rob's done with it. The next two are Tom and Brad, who are of course Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt from Interview with the Vampire.
See, I actually, my first guess was it was Tom Hiddleston.
Okay.
And
he's in that thing with Tilda Swinton.
Right. He's in The Only Lovers Left Alive.
Well, they say Tom and Brad. So
right. Yeah. It's going to be. They also say Kiefer.
Kiefer, right, from The Lost Boys.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Just A+ excellent jokes.
Right. And Danny Trejo, them talking about his tattoos.
Mexican tattoos.
Right, and just saying dark greetings.
Dark greetings, yeah. It's funny. It's just one of those things where it's more accessible to people than a lot of the other jokes in it. Where else can we go in this conversation, Andy?
I mean, Doug Jones, dude. Let's talk about geek favorite Doug Jones, who works consistently as guy in a costume.
Sure. Yeah, Doug Jones, of course. You would not, if you saw his face, you would probably not recognize him. Some of the films he's made appearances in are Hellboy. Who is he in Hellboy? He's
Abe Sapien.
I was going to say Abe Sapien.
Pan's Labyrinth. He's
in Pan's Labyrinth. Right. He's the what's that creature called in Pan's Labyrinth? The one with the eyes on his hands.
Right. The Pale Man.
The Pale Man. There we go. He's in The Shape of Water as the creature, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
That's not him in Lord of the Rings, right? No, that's not him.
No. He always works with Guillermo del Toro. He's been in so many other things, but he's just a great, as Guillermo del Toro calls him, he is a skinny motherfucker who looks great in any costume you put him in.
Yeah, he does play, of course, Baron, who we learn is not a baron, but Baron because he has no genitals.
Yeah. He's terrifying. He's a gruesome Count Orlok from Nosferatu.
Mm-hmm.
Him getting dressed in human clothes and going out on the town is just a great set of scenes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really much more we can talk about. Doug Jones is just always a delight whenever I see him. I have heard from multiple people who've met him that he is the nicest man alive. So I always love to give him a little bit of a call out.
Sure. One last thing to talk about, I guess. Is there anything from the film that you wish you had seen in the TV series?
Not really. They had the orgy. They had Nandor meeting his 96-year-old descendant. They've mentioned vampire hunters, so those are coming in. I'm I am so happy with this adaptation of a great premise that I just wanted to see more of, and I didn't want to sit through another movie. You know, this idea of a documentary crew following around a bunch of vampires just screams TV series to me, and I'm so happy that it survived the transfer. I also want to find how to watch the New Zealand show that's based on this, Wellington Paranormal.
Yeah,
which follows the cops around.
The one joke that I wish they had brought a version back from is when they explain why they love eating virgins.
Oh. That is probably the best joke in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's the best joke in the movie, and Jermaine Clement just says it so brilliantly because like the others are trying to explain why and blah blah blah, and then it's such a weird thing. Like, why? It doesn't make any sense. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Guillermo having a list of where to get virgins constantly, and
he said he's running dry.
Right. And he's like, I might have overfished the pool of LARPers. Also, the College Christian Club. They have a very different definition of what a virgin is.
The CrossFit.
Yeah, the CrossFit gym is a great place to get virgins because nobody ever touches them because they don't stop talking about CrossFit.
Yeah, so such great little gems like that. But it's a great show. I think you should watch it. But there's not much else to talk about, Andy. Let's move on, I guess, to Homer. Well, the last question: if you like what, then watch this.
I mean, if you like Shaun of the Dead, watch this. Absolutely watch this if you like Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm really trying to think. I have more. If you like this, watch this. So there's a few lesser known movies like Leslie Vernon Behind the Mask, which is a mockumentary that follows a movie slasher around. If you like Abbott and Costello meet the Wolfman, watch this.
Small audience there, but go on.
Yeah. I know. Shaun of the Dead. Like, if you like Shaun of the Dead, if you like vampire mythology in general, if you like The Office, check this out.
Sure. Yeah. All right, let's move on to homework. Andy, what do you have to suggest for our listeners today?
All right. For our listeners today, I have a plea and a suggestion for you to check out on Netflix, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yep. I've Ariel asked me if I wanted to start a podcast with him about it, and I was like, yeah, Ariel, I'd love to. And I'm still waiting to hear about that podcast, Ariel. That Avatar: The Last Airbender podcast you're doing with me, right?
Oh, with you.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah. You're totally doing it with me, right?
All right. Well, my homework. What Andy is alluding to is that I joined a podcast that two other people started called the Four Nations Report, which you can find on. I think we mentioned this last week. We put the first episode on our feed. You can find it on iTunes and all of those type of things. If you are a listener here and you want to check that out, please just go give us a quick review and rating on iTunes, both here on Geek 101 and the Four Nations Report. My homework today is a show that I watched on Hulu, and I binged it. I watched Solar Opposites.
Oh. Very nice. How was it?
It's pretty good. It's a little Rick and Morty, but more family sitcom.
Okay.
Instead of like adventurous, journey. It's like kind of if like Bob's Burgers was Aliens. So it's good. Couple of good episodes. Some are okay, but it's short, 20 something minutes and 10 episodes each. So something to watch if you do enjoy Rick and Morty. If you do enjoy something like even What We Do in the Shadows, I think those types of things would bear up pretty well. It does get ridiculous, kind of like Bob's Burgers, in the first season it just goes for it.
Mhm.
And just like pulls out all the stops to be completely ridiculous and silly. This does that in a lot of episodes too.
Yeah, well, it makes sense, and they can kind of do that in their world where aliens exist and alien technology exists.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here. Andy, do you know what we're doing next week yet?
No, we don't, Ariel. It's always the greatest mystery. What are we doing next week?
We'll figure it out. But before we get out of here, where can people find you online?
Oh, Ariel, I have an idea.
Sure.
We should do What We Do in the Shadows. Now, I don't mean the show. I mean, we talk about what we do in the shadows.
All right, Andy, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Hebrews Paleo.
You can find me at Portly Island Boy. You can find us at Geek 101 Podcast on Twitter and Facebook. Patreon, email us geek101pod@gmail.com. That's all we have for today. Class dismissed. And I wrote the poker